So I was thinking about my life over, however decades, right? And I was talking with a friend recently. We were talking about like the stereotypical generational differences, between like Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, Zoomers, whatever. People generally say that there's some fundamental similarities generationally between what people in those generations want out of a job, out of a life, what they find important. That's what I've always heard, and that's what we were talking about. Is that generally speaking, millennials care about having a purpose in their job, having meaningful work. And like as an example, Gen Z, they don't care at all about meaningful work. They just want a job that'll support their lives, and they want to do what they want to do with their lives. And I think that's great, if that's what you're into. And I think that's true for most things, is whatever the thing is, that's probably great if that's what you're into. But I was thinking about that is after I talked with my friend about that, is I remembered this would have had to have been 10 or 12 years ago. I hated my job. Really, really hated my job. And I was miserable. And I associated my misery in life with, it's because I hate my job. My job doesn't matter. It's not important. And that, I decided that was why I was miserable in my life. And that the way to change that, and the way to fix me being so miserable, was to get a job that mattered. And to do something meaningful and important with my life. And you can say that it was my upbringing or whatever, the way I was raised, or whatever things that I'd heard, seen happen to me when I was younger that led me to believe that that was how I find meaning in life, is with my job. I don't know how much of that is true, but what I do know is that I 100% knew it. You couldn't have possibly convinced me of anything else. Is that the reason that I wasn't finding meaning in my life was because of my job. And my job was simple, basic, boring, something anyone could have done, and it didn't have any kind of impact. That was the word that I used at the time, was I didn't have any impact on the world in my job. And so I put out into the universe, so to speak, I need to find a job that has meaning, that has impact. And, that's how I'm gonna have a purpose for my life. And I don't think there's anything inherently bad about that. However, I think there's problems with that. And, I put out into the universe that I need to find a job that has meaning and, to give my life purpose. And within 6 or 8 months or so of me, putting it out there, it's like, gotta have meaning, purpose, to make my life important, to, have an impact on the world. I found myself not even thinking about it. I find myself at another job where I felt like I'd done that. And I didn't realize it until a few months later. I was like, oh, I've done the thing. I am now at a job doing things with my life that have impact, that are of importance. You know, I've made it. And it took me years, many years, before I realized that is not what's important. Now, don't get me wrong, I loved that job. I still believe that the work that I did there was important. It was good work, and it had an impact on people's lives, on the world. And I don't want to say proud, but I'm very glad, very happy that I did that stuff. But that's not what gave my life meaning. It made me content for a while, but it didn't give my life meaning. Ultimately, it didn't make me happy. It didn't make my life important. But it took me many years to realize that and to acknowledge it. I didn't want to acknowledge it. I uprooted my entire life, uprooted eventually my wife's life, you know, the woman that I would marry. Eventually, I uprooted her life for greater, important purpose, right? And again, there was nothing wrong with that purpose inherently, but that's not what actually gave my life purpose, and ultimately not what gave her life purpose. And it took both of us, I think, a very long time to acknowledge it. I think we figured it out pretty quickly, but we didn't acknowledge it, I think, for several years after that. I was kind of talking about all of that stuff with my friend recently, and the generalization being that millennials care about purpose in their job and Gen Z people don't. And they find purpose in their actual life, with things that they're doing in their life, and that's what's important. And the job is just whatever it takes it's just what's needed. It's a necessary thing so that you can live. And, you know, 10 or more years ago, I would have fought that idea hard. Just been like, no, you moron, you can't just, you have to have a purposeful job. You have to have a job that, you know, you're committing your life to doing something meaningful, important. No, that's wrong. There's nothing wrong with having a job that's important, but there's also nothing wrong with having a job that's just a job. Stocking shelves at Costco or whatever. Operating a forklift in a warehouse. And some would argue that there's importance to that, and the point being that it's not a great impactful thing, and it doesn't matter whether you were the person that did that or someone else did that. Ultimately, it doesn't matter who does what, as long as the thing gets done. And that's a very businessy thought process, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, what makes your life meaningful is the things that you do in your life and the people that you have in it, the people that you love, the people that you care about, and the people that you don't, I think. Just respecting people, respecting everything around you, and doesn't matter what your job is, what you do with your day. What matters is how you do it.